Story 1. I've F23 been in love with my best friend, M21, since I first met him. It's not going away and I don't know how to deal with it because I have no idea if he likes me and it's stopping me from meeting someone else. Honestly, this is pretty straightforward. We met about 2 years ago and I instantly crushed on the guy. I honestly thought our first few nights out were dates, up until the point he went on a rant about a girl he had a crush on after a few beers. At that point, my thought process was pretty much, okay, not dates, got it, and moved on with the intent of friendship. Except, funny thing, turns out he checks all my boxes. I've never gotten along with anyone this well. People are shocked to find out, or, well, not anymore, but up until about a year after we became friends, we haven't known each other for years and years. We have the same humor, like the same games and TV shows, agree on politics, want the same things in life, all well enough to get along, but still with enough differences that we can have conversations about it. We discover bands together. We help each other with work and writing papers. I call him when I'm sad, and we both think it feels weird to not see each other for a week. Problem is, I'm completely head over fucking heels in love with the man, and it is starting to get to the point where I don't know what to do. I thought it'd go away, but every time I meet him, it's like I'm falling all over again. My friends have gone from teasing me about it to shooting me pitying looks whenever his name is brought up. My sister wants me to just stop seeing him. I go a week without talking to him, and I think I'm starting to get over it. But whenever I see him again, it all comes rushing back. I don't know what to do. It hurts, and it's not fun anymore. I've been on dates with some amazing guys who liked me, but my feelings for my friend is stopping me from falling for someone else. It's starting to feel pathetic, and at this point I see no good option. He's my best friend, the best I've ever had, and I just don't want to lose him. At this point, I think asking him out would achieve that since it's been so long since we met. I know the only way, for me personally, to get over someone is to stop seeing them, but I don't want to lose my best friend. The finishing touch keeping me on the hook are these asterisk looks asterisk he gives me. I've had other friends confirm he does this, because I was honest to God starting to think I was losing my fucking mind. Whenever we're out in a group, at a party or the pub, whenever I look over at him, it seems he's always looking at me, and these eye contacts last asterisk way asterisk too long to be normal. Like a good 6-7 seconds of us just looking at each other across the table, or the room, or the bar. And he does this little smile. I've never seen it on him in any other situation. I don't know what it means. I have no idea why we do this or how it came to be, but it's the final fucking nail in this coffin of hopelessness I'm buried in right now. I don't know if I'm crazy and over-interpreting things, which is very likely, or if I should just give it a shot and ask him out, even though it might ruin the friendship, or just stop seeing him, or to just carry on and hope this feeling goes away at some point of the distant future. I'm so frustrated I want to cry, and have cried. A lot. I just don't know what to do here. TLDR. I'm in love with my best friend. It has become a huge problem in my life. When we've been drinking, he keeps looking at me in a way I'd describe as smitten if it were any other person. I don't know what to do to get out of this hole of constant heartbreak and misery, and how to be able to move on to other guys. Update November 13th, 2024, 5.5 years later. So hello. A little over 5 years ago, I made a post on this subreddit looking for advice on how to handle my incredibly painful unrequited love for my best friend. I'd honestly forgotten about this until making a password reset on another account and saw Tubbs13 among my email search results. But as I read through the post, I remember how very comforting and terrifying the responses to my post was, being a more or less unanimous "ask him out," that scared my ass to death. Sorry that this isn't really a happy update, but I don't know. It felt weird seeing something I wrote in what feels like a different life, and the people who responded seemed so genuinely kind and trying to help. I feel like I weirdly owe some kind of update, especially for that one dear sweet commenter whose account is now deleted. I so wish I'd have a way to reach out to them, because that was one of the most thoughtful comments I think I've ever gotten. And just to recap, with hindsight, I really was in love with this man, and I had been for about 2 years, like full 9 yards in love, struggling to breathe when he talked about someone else but still cheering him on because he deserved happiness levels of in love. If that sounds a bit like obsession to you, then that's because it probably was. The thing about unrequited love, the thing that really sucks about it, is that it's incredibly hard to move on from. But until you do move on, your brain keeps obsessing about it to the point where it can be impossible to get anything done. It had been 2 years of that when I made that post, 2 years of pining and pain and an ever-growing pile of crushed hopes. And I think I was going a little bit insane, constantly swinging between butterflies and love highs when I was with my friend and the crushing feeling of rejection every time he'd say goodbye. And the obsession over things like how long he'd look at me, how long he'd let a hug last, how fast he'd respond to my texts, things which could either make or break my entire day depending on what the answer was. On to the actual update after that primer. About a month and a half or so after I made that post, still trying to hype myself up to actually ask this man out, I accidentally became a head organizer for an event at the university I was studying at for the moment. Long story short, the person managing me was not kind. I was extremely overworked from the event on top of writing a thesis. I was equally stressed out in my private life due to the whole situation with my best friend. And I ended up going through a pretty severe case of burnout. Add on to everything that I'd developed an addiction to alcohol to try to handle everything, and was also experiencing what was most likely a drug-induced paranoid psychosis, and I was a mess. I ended up moving back in with my dad in September and spent about a year doing nothing but sleeping, crying, playing Skyrim, and going to rehab and therapy. Start of 2021, I went back to school and slowly recovered. I've been sober since 2020. The paranoia hasn't completely gone away, but it's more manageable. I used to think my landlord listened to me through a radon measurement device, and at least that's over. And I think I've got a work-life balance figured out that helps me not overwork myself or go into free-time lethargy because I've got too much time off. It was long and painful, but I did it. If you're wondering where my best friend was in all of this, I honestly don't know. I went back to look at our text messages, and from what I can see, he tried to call me a few times in early September. I didn't respond, and then nothing until around Christmas when he wondered if I wanted to meet up sometime. I said yes and then never followed through. He hasn't texted me since January 4th, 2020. Now, to be clear, I don't blame him for not reaching out more. My non-responding is what killed that friendship. I know, because it also killed every other friendship I had at the time. I don't know, alcohol addiction, deep depression, and crippling paranoia may be a fair explanation to one day stop responding to any of your friends, but I still deeply regret those choices. If I were to make a relationships post today, it would be on how the fuck you word an apology after behavior like that 5 years down the road. Sorry. I feel like this is starting to become a journal. I'm going to stop my reflections there. So, about my love for my best friend, with some years of hindsight and therapy behind me. I don't think I was in love with him. I think I was in love with the idea of him. And I think I was obsessed for sure, but looking back, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think a part of me really liked the fact that this was a person who so clearly wasn't interested in me. Genuinely, if he was, that would shock me to find out, because he spent 2.5 years ignoring the, in hindsight, very obvious attempts I made to deepen the relationship. Some examples include him saying he's waiting for the right person, me responding, "Sometimes I feel like I already have. Do you ever feel like that?" And him going, "Nah, I don't think so." Me following that up with, "Maybe you just don't know. The heart is weird sometimes." And him going, "I'm pretty sure I'd know." One time we talked about why people fall in love, and I genuinely tried to convince him a deep friendship was all you needed, while he insisted that there needed to be a level of sexual attraction as well. I tried to get him to do that 36 questions that will make you fall in love thing with me. I kept trying to find excuses to hold his hand. Rest in peace, my palm-reading career. You were nothing but a thinly veiled attempt at finger-touching, and him resolutely never going along with it. Ditto, but with hugs, arm touching, and sitting just a little too close whenever we went out so I could hear him better, which he normally responded to by going, "We should go outside so you can hear better if it's too loud in here." Very thoughtful, but very much not what the goal was. One night, when we were alone in my apartment after a club event, after a particularly long shared look, I asked him what he was thinking about in that kind of, I don't want to break the illusion soft voice you put on when you're really fucking close to someone you like, and his response was, "I don't know if I agree that Gertz's metaphor about blinking makes that much sense, actually." For context, we'd bickered about that earlier in the night since we'd just read some article about it in class. I did not expect it to make a comeback at that point. Another night, when we were out together and there had been a lot of looks and closely leaned in laughing together, and he pulls me to one side by the hand to talk to me about something, heart racing, only to ask me if I know if one of my friends is single because he thinks she's really fucking cute and might have been looking at him all night. Looking back, at least some of this stuff is sort of funny. I have no idea if he knew or knows now that I was in love with him. I wouldn't be surprised if some of my old friends eventually told him, but of course he's never reached out about it. But yes, I think I kinda like the security of this person who clearly didn't like me back. Not that I was doing well with the heartache, but there's a certain kind of fucked up comfort that comes from pining for someone who doesn't want you back. Like the highs I'd get when I got something that felt like confirmation made up for the lows of crying in my apartment stairway when I got home after a denial. Today I mostly just feel so bad for him and ashamed of myself. Regardless of whether he knew or not, and I'm trying to cling to the fact that he seemed to at least continue wanting to be friends as some indicator that he never felt creeped out or uncomfortable, my behavior was pretty fucking creepy. And in the end, once I did get that distance between us, the feelings went away after some 6 months or so. My therapist recommended not meeting this person again for my own sake, and by early 2020 I wasn't so painfully in love anymore. A while later, I'd end up meeting a guy I clicked with just as much, who actually liked me back and showed it. We've been together for almost 3 years now, and are talking about starting to try for kids at some point soon. He'd like us to get married first, but is also insisting he wants to be the one to propose, so I'm just walking around waiting for the day. Even if it's not a huge surprise or secret, he just wants to get that moment of going down on one knee, and who am I to deny him? I'm slowly growing old and boring. I'm sober. I go to my boring, stable middle career 9-5 job I save for my retirement and traveling on the summers. I help my dad out on his farm. I crochet little animals for my newborn niece. I come home to a man who plays his silly video games. I play my silly video games. We go for walks and to the museum and bicker about whether to get fat on takeout or not. I have some regrets about how my early 20s ended up playing out, but by God, I wouldn't want to go back. TLDR. I didn't ask him out. Instead, I had a severe mental health crisis, stopped talking to all my friends, got sober, crawled my way back, and now looking back, I'm surprisingly happy with how life turned out. Oh, and I genuinely did not exaggerate those looks. I remember them very clearly and once had a mutual friend comment on it. I still have no idea what was up with those. He doesn't strike me as a person who would try to keep someone on the hook or anything, more like he was just painfully socially oblivious. But I still wonder so much about those goddamn looks, man. Story 2. I, 24F, am planning to ghost my boyfriend, 23M, of 3 years. Is there a better way to break up with him? I will try to keep this as short as possible, because I feel a lot of what's going through my brain is nonsense rambling. But my boyfriend and I met at work nearly 4 years ago. We hit it off right away and formed a really close friendship. We didn't get together until a year later after we went through our own respective breakups. I was so happy after we got together. I felt like I had met my soulmate. He was almost everything I wanted in a man. I started to rethink that in the last month or so. For some context, my boyfriend had kept in contact with his ex, even after I made it clear I was uncomfortable with it. After a while, I stopped bringing it up because I knew what the answer would be. After a conversation with my sister, I brought it up one more time about 2 months ago. He told me that he had already blocked her. I had never felt more happy and felt a positive shift in our relationship. Too bad it was a lie. About a month or so ago, I came home with this gut feeling that something was off with him. So for the first time in my life, I looked through a partner's phone. The messages were innocent enough, but spanned back far enough to tell me he lied about ever blocking her. Not only did he lie about not being contact, he blown off a date night with me to go hang out with her. When I confronted him, he broke down and said that he had only gone to her because he was feeling upset about his family situation. He claims the only reason he didn't come to me was because he thought I couldn't handle the stress given my mental illness. At the time, I wanted to work it out and forgave him under the condition that he blocked her and came to me about his issues. He got better about telling me things, and as far as I knew, he had her blocked. Well, the other night he said he was going out with some friends and would be home late. All of this was fine and normal until I noticed that he had turned off his location and was ignoring my calls. He says that he left his phone in his car and turned off his location by accident. But given that I have more than 2 brain cells, I know he's lying. He got a brand new phone, and it has been glued to his hand since he got it, so him leaving it, his car seems so unlikely to me. These 2 events aren't the reason for me wanting to leave, but rather the catalyst. After both of these things happened, I started looking a little too closely and have noticed some concerning behaviors. The first being I don't think he actually likes me as a person. He talks about how much he loves me, but a lot of his compliments are rooted in my appearance. He says he thinks I'm smart, but whenever I say something that he doesn't really agree with, I'm stupid for thinking that. He's constantly telling me how much the gifts he gets me are despite me asking him not to, because it makes me feel bad for not being able to afford the same caliber of gift for him. Our sense of humor is rooted in being slightly mean to each other. With that sense of humor, we're bound to hit a small nerve every now and then. When I hit a nerve, he tells me, and I stop bringing it up. But when I let him know that he made fun of a big insecurity, he continues to make the same jokes. To make matters worse, the jokes aren't even that funny. Those are small behaviors I feel can go overlooked, but the following are more serious and have been a big fight between my boyfriend and I. The first one being his anger. No matter the situation, if there is any kind of inconvenience, he defaults to anger. Small disagreements escalate to full-blown fights because he gets angry and doesn't let me share my thoughts on the situation. And big fights turn scary. We have only ever gotten into 2 or 3 really big fights, but they have all left me feeling scared of him for a few hours following. Now on the most serious, in my opinion, his treatment of our animals. He came into the relationship with a dog, and we just got a new puppy a few months ago. When the dogs chew on something or run up the street after a squirrel or whatever, he hits them. I'm not talking about a pop on the nose. I mean, our puppy will scream his head off because my boyfriend is so incredibly mean to him. In an attempt to keep the violence to a minimum, I took over their punishments. It's worked for the most part, but there are moments where he gets to them first, and I always feel so guilty. I also brought a cat into this relationship, and even though he hasn't laid a finger on the cat, he makes way too many jokes about hurting him. I know I want to leave, but I'm torn between talking to my boyfriend about it or just packing up and leaving one day while he's at work. Any advice? Super teeny tiny update that doesn't require a brand new post quite yet. I'm speaking with my supervisor tomorrow to get a realistic timeline of when I can leave. I know I can technically leave whenever, but I really love my job and want to make sure that the person taking over my position is completely set. After that has been settled, I just need to wait until move-out day. I also wanted to clear up some of the comments saying that I am controlling for having his location. We have had each other's location for almost as long as we have been living together. It's always been for safety purposes. I don't sit on my phone all night watching where his pin is moving across the map. When either of us go out, we send each other like some kind of text to let the other know that they're okay. I sent a few texts while I was stuck in traffic and just kind of complaining to him, and then a few hours later I sent him a text just checking in and looking for that like quick to let me know that he was alive. I didn't get any response. I got worried because that is not a common behavior for him, so I looked at his location to make sure that he wasn't in a ditch somewhere. Keeping with the same theme of me being controlling, I didn't like that he was talking to his ex and had asked him to block her a few times. I would not give a shit if they were friends if either of them were being respectful to our relationship. Before I resorted to blocking, I had asked him to set up some ground rules and boundaries with her about what their friendship would look like given their past. He did not do this, and she was openly flirting with him and doing things to get him to notice her. She also likes to call back to back to back, like close to 15 calls within 2 minutes, when she knows we're together. So given that neither one of them respected our relationship when they started their friendship, I feel completely justified asking him to block her. If you think that makes me controlling or some heinous monster, I just don't care. Additional information from OOP on how she reacts to her BF's behaviors towards animals. OOP, I love the enthusiasm, but as this is my reality, I'm not asking whether or not you like the choices I've made. I don't care if you like that I went through his phone, I did, and found a truth he would have otherwise kept from me. As for staying with him when I knew he beat animals, I wasn't really aware of it until we got the puppy. When we moved in together, his dog was fully trained and didn't really behave in a way that he thought was worthy of a beating. So my boyfriend really only started showing his true colors during the process of training our puppy. After a certain point, relationships aren't about leaving when you're unhappy or you see a red flag. I live with this man, I am under a contract for my job, and my job does not pay me enough to live on my own, especially with pets. Leaving him means that I am blowing through all of the savings that I have collected to find a new place to live, breaking my contract, and completely uprooting my life. It's something that I am in the process of doing, but it is still a very hard decision that I'm making. I came on here to get some advice about how to leave the situation, not to be told that I make bad choices or that I'm not leaving him fast enough. Relevant. Comment? OOP needs to get out of there ASAP with her pets. OOP. I've thought about it before after I saw the way he treats the animals, but given my job I wasn't able to afford living on my own, especially with pets. I'm just lucky enough that I'm finally in a position where I can afford to take my pets with me. The puppy and cat are coming with me. I feel terrible leaving his dog, but he has more of a legal claim to her than I do. Plus, the person I'm moving in with is only allowing me to bring 2 animals. OOP on how her BF came into owning the puppy. OP. We didn't adopt the puppy. A friend's dog had puppies and he was given to us. However, my boyfriend's name is on the vet bills, which I don't know if that means anything as far as him coming for the dog. OOP's boyfriend needs to get help with his own issues. OOP. I understand having anger management issues so long as you are actively working on them. He refuses to go to therapy or get any sort of help and seems almost proud of his anger at times. It's always been odd to me, but he also didn't start getting at me like this until we had been living together for a while. Was OOP the reason why her BF left his last relationship? OP, no, she had cheated on him with a coworker and they broke up after she confessed. OP on packing everything up and make an escape when her BF is at work or away from home. OOP. Thank you so much for the solid advice. I have a friend coming to help me move ASAP, and I will be locating to a completely different part of our state. We're on a lease together, so there will need to be some kind of communication, but everything will be done through our landlord because he will be blocked. I didn't think of changing my number until I saw all the comments, so thank you so much for giving me that suggestion. Update, November 12th, 2024, 2.5 weeks later. It's been a few weeks since my initial post, but for those of you who didn't get the chance or just don't care enough to go read my desperate ramble, here's a summary. My boyfriend of almost 3 years has a history of just being extremely angry and blowing minor disagreements out of proportion. He's made jokes about ending mine and my pets' lives and mistreating them in such a severe way. I didn't know how to leave him. I was scared, and part of me wanted to hold out until he became the sweet man I fell in love with again. After finding out he had been lying to me about being in contact meeting up with his ex, I realized that he is never going to change and started to plan my escape. This update is not very interesting, but a lot of people wanted to know. At the end of my last post, I had settled on leaving with my pets and was just waiting on move-out day. Move-out day came quicker than expected. Nothing escalated to dangerous degree, but his behavior changed a lot. Suddenly, he was being so incredibly sweet and was talking a lot about commitment. During our last conversation, he was ready to go down to the courthouse and get married right that second. I'm not sure if this is what love bombing is or if it was just him being desperate because he sensed I was pulling away. After that conversation, I knew if I stayed, nothing good would come out of it. So I called my family to come help me move out after he left for work. I was able to get out safely with my cat and puppy. I wound up sending a message kind of explaining why I left and asking him to never contact me again before blocking him on everything. So far, he's only tried to call me from a different number once. If he continues to reach out, I plan to talk to local law enforcement to see if a restraining order is possible. I'm not a fan of how everything ended, but I am glad to be out of that situation and somewhere safe where I can learn who I am outside of him. Story 3. Me, 32M, with my ex, 33F, broke up over a wedding dress code. I dated my ex for about 4 years. My family is from Nigeria, and I'm very proud of my culture. My ex is white. I grew up in Australia, but I have close ties to my roots. Originally, race was not an issue when we first started dating, but as we got more and more serious, I felt like she wasn't willing or didn't really understand how important my family and culture are to me. My Sil was always close with my mother despite the cultural barrier and always seemed happy to come to family events and spend time with us and treats me like her own brother. She's even been learning how to cook some of our foods from my mother, which made my mom really happy, and my brother has been learning to cook North Indian-style curries and stuff as well. My Sil isn't conservative or anything, but culture is important to her and my brother, and as I get older, it feels important to me too. The final straw was at my brother's wedding that spurred me into action. My Sil is Indian, and she's also very fiercely proud of her culture as well. And they've always talked about how mixed-race kids grow up culture-neutral, whereas they wanted their kids to have the best of both worlds. I've noticed that my ex was never that into my culture, never really spent time with my family and didn't really enjoy coming to family functions and that sort of thing, and used to always question some of our cultural practices in a really quizzical kind of way, and I could tell that she found it a bit dumb. She also made comments about immigrants not taking the effort to assimilate. Her words. Anyway, my brother and Sil had an amazing Indian-Nigerian fusion type of wedding. Because in her culture, white is the color of widows and black is the color for funerals. They specifically, under dress code, stated to wear your colors, no black or white. My ex mostly only wears black. It didn't really bother me, but on the day of the wedding, she wore a black dress. I asked her not to wear a black dress because it specifically stated on the invite not to, but she was adamant that my Sil was being a bridezilla, and she didn't have to accommodate. Anyway, at the wedding, my ex was the only one in black. My Sil took one look at her and asked her if she was going to a funeral after the wedding. My ex got very embarrassed and said that she didn't have any other dresses when my cousin piped up with, "Oh, why didn't you tell us? You could have borrowed one of mine. We're the same size." My Sil didn't say anything after that. They were too busy with other stuff. But my ex was fuming the entire time at the wedding. To make matters worse, she says a few other people asked her why she was wearing black. I didn't see anyone, but they might have. After the wedding, she was mad at me for not backing her up. I told her not to wear a black dress and that if she needed to buy one, then she had plenty of time. She said she didn't need to buy one since she has a right to wear what she wanted, and that it was unreasonable to dictate something like this for a dress code since she wasn't from their culture. Anyway, the fight escalated, and finally, in the heat of the moment, I broke up with her. It's been a few days now, and she's blowing up my phone alternatively begging me for another chance, but also mad at me for not backing her up. I feel like, given how well my Sil interacts with my family, even though she's from another culture, how respectful she is, I want someone like that. For me, a wedding is about families, not just individuals, and I don't want to lose my relationship with my family over my girlfriend-wife. I need some perspective here. Did I do the right thing, or should I have backed up my ex? TLDR. Broke up with my ex over cultural differences, wondering if I did the right thing. I mean, it's a silly fight, all right. The bride herself wasn't even mad about it. I'm sure they can figure something out. Update November 1st, 2015, 6 days later. Copy of the update. I spoke to my brother and Sil about it because they'd noticed I seemed down and didn't talk about my ex at all. They convinced me to talk to her because they thought it was very disrespectful what she did. but her kind of white didn't understand family or culture, and I did invest 4 years of my life with her. My brother and SIL also told me that I owed it to myself to get some closure, and I agreed. I spoke to her a few days ago because how abrupt the relationship ended. It did not go well. We met and had coffee in a park. I told her how hurt I was that she would disrespect my brother and CL on their wedding day by wearing a dress in one of the 2 colors they asked us not to wear. She told me that she'd forgotten about wedding and had to rush to get something to wear. I told her I wasn't convinced. The wedding had been on everyone's mind, and we'd been asked to help set up the hall, which she didn't want to help with, but I went. She told me this was a stupid fight over a stupid dress. I didn't feel that way. I felt it was her not respecting our culture. That's when she got annoyed and told me that culture is a man-made thing and that we were in Australia now. I told her that my heritage was always going to be important to me and my future children, and that I couldn't be with someone who didn't feel that way. She mentioned things like FGM and stuff. None of the women in my family have gone through that. And stuff. And I told her that culture is a dynamic thing and that my family didn't even believe in that stuff and weren't that backwards. I was offended she'd even think so. Surely you see from meeting them that they're not like that. It was wrong of me, but I pointed out that all my mother, my female cousins, etc., were all more educated and successful than her. That was when the conversation started rapidly going downhill. She told me she'd chosen a less strenuous career for me because we wanted to have kids, and she wanted to be there to raise them unlike my double-income family members, including my mother, because I'd mentioned that my mother had worked weekends sometimes. My mother got an education against all odds, and my parents have always been after me to educate myself, which I have. That pissed me off. I told her quite angrily that I always respected what my mother and father had done for us, that she was 28 when she met me, so she didn't choose a less strenuous career for me. She couldn't blame me for that. She then got upset and said she didn't have much time to have kids. How could I do that to her? She should have listened to her family, that I was untrustworthy, and she'd wasted the best years of her life on me. I told her if that's the way she felt, then it's better that we stay broken up, and got up and walked off. Yesterday, I got a nasty FB messages from various family members calling everything from an N-word to how my ex was lucky she didn't get AIDS from me. I've blocked all of them. I told my family about it, and they were furious. I'm better off without her. It's a good thing we didn't live together, even though we've got stuff at both our houses. Her family was a bit conservative like that. She's texted me a few times since apologizing and wanted to talk again, but I only responded to say that I wanted to pick up my stuff, and I'd boxed her stuff up, so we should probably meet at the park to exchange it. An hour later at midnight, the day before, she kept texting and calling me to come give her stuff immediately, so I went with my brother, SEL, and cousin, and we exchanged stuff. Her dad was there, and he started getting riled up, calling me names, a piece of shit, etc. But my SIL got right up in his face and just started yelling right back up at him and told him that we'd got to police and show him the 15-odd messages of his daughter saying that if I didn't come get my stuff, she'd destroy it, and she was happy to post all the nasty messages his family had sent me to their workplaces. My ex then begged her dad to calm down, and so he walked off. I refused to go inside the house and told my ex to get just my stuff. Turns out she hadn't packed up my stuff, so my SIL suggested we drop her stuff off at a mutual friend's house, and ex had a week so she could do the same. I called around to find a friend, and she agreed to it at the time as well. My ex then messaged me today apologizing because she wasn't expecting my family members to turn up and that she'd wanted to talk and she reacted badly. With her father there? Yeah, right. I told her the same thing. She had a week. Get my stuff packed up and dropped off to friend's house. She texted me back saying it didn't have to be like this, etc., but I told her it did, and I didn't want to discuss anything further. In the future, I'll notice warning signs about her family's behavior and stuff well ahead, and not always feel like I have to prove myself over and over again because I'm black, or put up with Nigerian scam jokes, or being affectionately called Blackie because I don't want to make a fuss or because I didn't want to be seen as oversensitive. It wasn't until I spoke to my brother, and to a lesser extent my SEIL after this conversation, that I realized how not normal this was. Anyway, I have dropped her stuff off, and I'm just hoping I get my stuff back from her place. The most expensive thing is a tablet, but I won't be too out of sorts if I don't get it back. It'll just be an expensive lesson. TLDR. Talk to X. Things went rapidly downhill. We are done for good. Relevant comment. Downvoted commenter. Why the fuck would you care if white people found you oversensitive? OP. Because I felt like when I was with them, I was representing black people because we have such a bad rap. I felt like I had to show them that we're not all like that, and essentially buying into their racist bullshit. Firesong 32. I'm Australian. Obviously not all Australians are like this, but a great deal of them are. They don't consider themselves racist, but they'll push you with jokes, etc. That just underscore how they really feel. OP shouldn't have to put up with it. I love Australia, but I hate that part of our society. I live elsewhere now. Eat it. I'm genuinely surprised at the number of people agreeing with me, so I'll elaborate a bit. Growing up, I argued with my own family many times about this. It was a huge source of conflict. For years, I thought that I was oversensitive and wrong. Nowadays, I just laugh politely and remove myself from the conversation. I'm a younger generation, and many people my age feel the same way I do. We just have to wait until we call the shots. Story 4. My 31M girlfriend, 29F, has a locked room in her house. I don't know what is in it. My girlfriend Amy and I have been tougher for 5 years, and we are planning on moving in together into her home when my lease is up in 2 months. Our relationship is great. We have arguments, but no often, and we always resolve them like rational people. Amy owns a house, and she bought it about 10 years ago. The city we live in was depressed for a while. Picture Detroit, but not, where if you were so inclined you could buy a big house in a bad neighborhood for a song and dance, and then fix it up and hope the neighborhood would come around, which is luckily what happened to her. It's a big old Victorian house with 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Usually we hung out at my apartment since it was near her work, and I don't have a car to get out to her place, but some weekends here and there I would spend the night. When my job went removed 5 months ago, I started spending a lot more time at her place. It wasn't until after a month I realized the one room upstairs has a latch with a padlock on it. I thought it was really weird that it was a padlock and not just a door lock. I mentioned it to her and she just said, "Yeah, I really don't go in that room or use it." What? I mean, I get that it's a big home and she lived in it alone for a long time, so she didn't need the space, but to padlock it like that? I asked her what was in it and she shrugged and said, "Stuff," like it was no big deal. I asked if we could open it since maybe that would be a good space for my home office, and she said no. Now I'm really curious, and it's actually sort of eating away at me. I don't care what is in the room, I just honestly don't get why it is padlocked shut. That's weird, right? Am I being unreasonable since I'm moving in? I understand the right to privacy and I wouldn't snoop, and couldn't if I wanted to. You couldn't even tell from the outside since it's on the 2nd floor. I've been sort of paying attention now if she goes in there or not, and I don't think she ever does. I feel like since I'm moving in, I have a right to know. But do I? I don't want to make her open it, but she's so nonchalant about it and changes the subject that my mind keeps running away with me about what could be in there. I'm just wondering what other people think, what I should do, and if I'm being unreasonable wanting to know what is in this padlocked room, or if I don't have a right to. Our relationship is amazing and perfect, except for this one really weird issue. TLDR, moving in the girlfriend who has a padlocked shut room she never goes in and she won't open it. Relevant top comments. Library Lulu. 4 children from her previous marriage that she doesn't want you to know about. 2. Her mother's mummified body. 3. She's secretly a slob, and that's where she throws all the unwashed dishes and hoarded cat poop. 4. 23 cats. No more, no less, and a lot of cat poop. 5. All of her previous boyfriends and 2 ex-husbands who mysteriously disappeared. 6. Her collection of fingers. They no longer fing. 7. A horse. That's why you hear those noises in the night. The sound of distant nickering. 8. Marijuana farm. 9. Dracula. Redrose beetle. 10. Satanic altar. 11. BDSM dungeon. 12. Trafficked people. 13. Portal to another dimension. 14. The TARDIS. Library Lulu. That room is huge on the inside. Plenty of room for all the bodies. OOP. Cats send me into an almost dying asthma attack, so I think if there was 23 of them, I would know. The marijuana farm is very unlikely. She's in law enforcement LOL. Tilde. Sleep 3,313. Maybe it's her clutter room like Monica has from Friends. Tilde. Super Megultrades. This is straight out of a horror movie. You've been together 5 years. Some ominous locked room in the house you plan to move into is a huge fucking no-no. You do have a right to know since you're moving in. Weird, creepy secrets should not be a thing in relationships. Tell her it makes you uncomfortable and you'd like to know what's in that room before you move in. OP. That's a good way to phrase it about it making me uncomfortable. Hopefully she knows I mean it. I'm really big on privacy and respecting privacy boundaries. But this really is just driving me up a wall. Attack_Symmetra. And while I know you two are big on privacy, you have to come back with an update on what's in the room. We need to know. Unless you end up getting murdered by the clown dolls from a burned-down children's hospital that are locked inside. OP. Oh God, I didn't even consider clowns. I will absolutely give an update either way. She's working an overnight tonight, so I will talk to her tomorrow. I'm enjoying this thread so much. On a serious note, though, has your GF experienced any serious trauma that you're aware of? I ask, because I also had a never go in that room. Last year, my daughter almost died in her bedroom. It was a CPR and defibrillator and ambulances and a world-class children's hospital involved level incident. She's okay now, but I couldn't stay in that house again. We moved out a week later, and every time we went back to pack, I had to have my husband deal with her room, with the door closed. Just too many horrifying memories. Like I said, I know it's a stretch, but is it possible that something like that could have happened? OP. Wow, that must have been so scary. I'm glad your daughter is okay. As far as I know, there has been no trauma. But after 5 years, I would have thought I would have heard about it by now, unless she decided to not tell me, which I would respect if it was that traumatic. Update April 15th, 2017, 3 days later. Copy of the update. Here is my update. I never did figure out how to post it. Hello, Reddit. I promised an update to my prior post in this sub. Sorry for no link. I'm on mobile, so not sure how to link it. But if you look in my post history, it's the only on there. I would have posted early, but I needed some time to digest things. I had a long talk with my girlfriend when she got home from work in the morning about the locked room. She tried to blow it off a few times and get out of the conversation until I told her I couldn't move in until she told me what was in the room, and I saw it for myself. I told her I didn't care what was in there. After posting here, I was more and more convinced that it was probably guns or something related to her work in law enforcement, as that really did make a lot of sense. Eventually, she just broke down sobbing. Big, giant, ugly sobs like I have never seen before. It was pretty shocking. She's not really a crier. It took a good 15 minutes before she could even start forming words that I could understand between giant sobs. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see, and I knew as soon as she started crying that it wasn't a room full of guns or work stuff. Actually, the room is empty. There is nothing in there. Someone had surmised in the comments of the other post that maybe there was some trauma. I forgot who it was, but unfortunately they were correct. She was basically a kid at 19 when she bought the house. Like I said, bad neighborhood, fixer-upper, etc. And it was dirt cheap due to the city she lived in and those other factors. She had always been smart with money, so she had a big down payment and was planning on taking the rest of her savings to fix it up. I don't want to get specific with details, as it's pretty gruesome and also privacy. But in her 3rd week living there, she had a home invasion while she was home in that room, and she was assaulted. She had no money to move and no family around, so she stayed in the home after buying a security system and locking the door up and planning to just never unlock it and basically never go on that room again. So there you have it. I seriously was not expecting that at all, and it has been a long week for her, and I feel terrible I made her tell me. But she says that she's glad I know now. She never told me before because she didn't want to, which I totally respect. Also, that is when she decided to start a career in law enforcement to help other people. FYI, I have let actually seen in the room, and now I don't feel I ever need to. TLD, our girlfriend has locked room in house, turns out to be nothing but bad memories. Story 5. My 32F wife, 30F, of 4 years, is overteaching our kids 2 and 4M. Everything is either a learning experience or an opportunity to learn a skill. I feel like I'm living in a children's workbook and I can't anymore. No, my wife is not actually a teacher. So our kids are to the ages where they're becoming little people and it's awesome. Our older loves being a big brother and the younger is growing by leaps and bounds. Life is pretty damned good. Except we can't go out of the house without it being a completely out of control learning experience or an opportunity for skill building. The best way to illustrate this is through examples. The other day we're at the grocery store. The older boy is walking, the younger is in the shopping cart. We have like 10 or so things to buy. And there's my wife to our older son, who we'll call John, I guess. John, can you count how many items are in the cart? What line should we go in? Do we need to wait our turn? Is it our turn yet? Oh, look, it's our turn. What do we do with our things? No, we don't put them on the desk. That's not called a desk. It's called a check stand. Can you say that word, honey? Check stand, what's the person we pay called? Can you read his name? This thing is called a credit card. Do you know how it works? On and on and on and on. Everyone in that damn line was rolling their eyes and giving me sympathetic looks. Sometimes my wife will let the younger Bill help or be present during chores and meal prep or things like that. It's more of the same. Bill, this is a spoon. This is a knife. This is called a ladle, and this is what we do with it. This is a cup. These are noodles. We need to put them in water that's boiling, and you know water is boiling when you see bubbles to make them soft enough to eat. This is dish soap. It makes the dishes clean. He's 2 for God's sake. It's just everything is learned to death. The other night we were out for a walk and a little kitten darted across the street. Now, a normal parent might ask the kid what animal that was. If he says a cat or a kitten, she'd say, "Good job," and move on. John said it was a cat. My wife said, "Yes, it's a cat, but it's a baby cat." Do you know what a baby cat is called? Is a cat a mammal or a reptile? How do you know? How do mammals raise their young? Do all mammals have fur? I told her I was getting a headache. She could finish the walk with the kids and meet me at home. It wasn't a lie, really. Something similar happened at the fair, too. I'm not exaggerating when I say the kids never got to go on one ride and never got to eat one treat because they were so busy learning and building skills, and I can't even deal with that phrase anymore. It makes me want to scream any time I bring it up, like, "Honey, just let them have fun. We can talk about what they learned on the way home, I'll get, but this is such a great opportunity for them to build skills. They won't remember in 2 hours. If I want to get them a simple, stupid toy that's just for fun, like something they can throw around or a stuffed toy or something, nope, that doesn't help them build any skills. Or a ball is great for helping them build coordination skills. Everything in our lives is a learning experience. It's either skill building, I can't anymore, or we the kids never get to do the activity because we have to learn about it. I've talked to her. God knows I've talked to her. I've said it great. She wants to give our kids such a head start and make sure they have good life skills for when they need them, but everything doesn't need to be a learning activity. They can't just color random designs on paper, they have to build skills. Then we have to go through the primary colors and learn about crayons and then do some skill building or enrichment activity. They can't just have fun, they can't just play. After the fair, I lost my shit that night. She was getting undressed and remarked how much fun the kids had. I am not proud to say I blew my stack. This was after at least 100 conversations with various approaches about this, and I ended up shouting, "No, they did not have fun. They didn't get to ride the Ferris wheel. They got a physics lesson. They didn't get to eat deep-fried anything. They got a nutrition lesson. They didn't get to play games. They got a counting lesson. They didn't get to try to win a goldfish. They got a zoology lesson. Nothing the kids did could possibly considered fun in any universe." And now I'm an apathetic father leaving her to do all the teaching when they're my kids too. I'm at the end of my rope. It's not like I never want them to have learning experiences. It's not like I never want them to do anything educational. But they need to just be fucking kids sometimes too, and she thinks she's making learning fun when nothing is fun anymore. And I can't listen to any more of these buzzwords like skill building and enrichment, and everything repeated 50 times to the kids, or I'm going to lose my ever-loving mind. Help me, Reddit! Tell a doctor my life is an elementary school classroom. My kids never get to just have fun because they always have to learn. Apparently that makes me a terrible father. Wife won't even entertain my opinions on the matter. Who do I do? Update September 22nd, 2016. Copy of the post. I didn't mean to completely abandon this post. I just had no idea it would blow up like it did. And by the time I got home from work, there were more comments than I could possibly answer. Thank you, everyone! To answer some questions I saw. The kids are bored to death. Bill, being only 2, isn't super verbal, obviously, but John has asked on more than one occasion why we can't do what we came for, basically. Using the fair again, he asked why he couldn't go on the kiddie Ferris wheel. My wife basically ignored him and just kept teaching. That's part of the reason why I was so mad that night. It seems much more about her than the kids' development at all. I talk to my sons a lot, or at least I try to. I can't really bring up anything without my wife coming in and teaching, or suggesting we do something else to build some skills. I feel like she's actually getting in the way of my own relationship with my kids. I guess I had more to unpack about this than I thought. But on to the update. This couldn't have been timed any better if I'd planned it. So John is 4. We have him in a pre-K type class 3 days a week. The very day I made my post, I got a call from the teacher. She basically told me that John is a very smart little boy, that he seems to know a little bit about everything and has a great vocabulary and memory. But what she said next just about made me tear up and seriously consider a divorce. There have been several instances since the class started where John has been left to his own devices. They have some structured activities during the day and some semi-structured. Like times when the kids will be painting, but they're free to paint whatever and however they want. They also have some unstructured time, where they're free to play with the toys in the classroom. Some are learning type toys, some are just toys like the large Lego blocks, stuffed toys, balls, things like that. Well, the first time John was presented with watercolor paints and a blank piece of paper, he did nothing. The teacher blew it off as nervousness, since this is a lot of kids' first experience with being around a large number of peers away from home. She also noticed he didn't really play much with the other children. She tried to help him join in some of their games, but he didn't seem interested. She decided to call me after this incident. The class was given a box of metallic crayons and a black piece of construction paper. John did the same thing again. The teacher came over and asked him what he'd like to draw. He said he didn't know. She gave some suggestions like his favorite cartoon character. If we have a cat or a dog, to draw his pet. If we didn't, draw a cat or a dog he might like to have, draw a space alien and a spaceship, and he still said he didn't know what to draw. After a few more suggestions from the teacher, John apparently looked at her and said, "I just don't know what skill I'm supposed to learning." Like I said, I nearly broke down. I guess I never put it together. I should have, but I never did. And I'm as much at fault for that as my wife is for this whole thing. My sons have no social skills. They have no creativity. They have no imagination. They don't know that sometimes the purpose of fun is to have fun because they've never been exposed to it. I kinda hate myself for not extrapolating this. So basically, we're raising walking encyclopedias with no personality. They aren't actually building any skills at all. I have a feeling they'd learn to hold crayons and draw by the time they're old enough to leave the house. They'll also be able to count, cook a simple meal, and understand that a washing machine gets clothes clean. What they won't understand is the really important stuff. They won't make and learn from mistakes with friends. They won't be able to relate to kids their own ages. They won't understand what activities are appropriate and not appropriate when they get older and start doing things without us. They'll probably end up codependent because they'll always be waiting for someone else to tell them what to do. They'll be abuse magnets. I had to come to Jesus with my wife when she got home. I didn't let her call the teacher and tell her what's what. Instead, I told her that I'd called a family therapist, and if she wanted to stay married, we were also going to couples counseling. No ifs, ands, or buts on any of it. She needs to build some damn parenting skills, and I need to learn how to grasp the concept of if A, then B. I did not leave room for negotiation. I accept my fault in this. I was an only child myself. My parents were pretty hands-off, for the most part, and I haven't really had a lot of occasion in my adult life to spend a great deal of time with young children or with other parents of young children. Just because I knew what was wrong apparently didn't automatically teach me what was right. I also want us to go to parenting classes eventually, but that's at a different point, assuming we get through all the rest of this stuff. I want to thank everyone for their comments, and I'll be more attentive to this thread if there's anything else you'd like to know. We're raising socially retarded robots who don't understand fun and have no personalities. I'm just as much at fault, and I'm trying to fix it in a big way. Story 6. I discovered that my parents, 50s, have been lying to me, 19F, about my food allergies, and who knows what else, for my entire life. Am I justified if I cut them out of my life? I'm using a throwaway account because I have family on Reddit. Ever since I was a little girl, my parents have told me that I'm allergic to both milk and chocolate. The story goes that I broke into severe hives on my very first Halloween. My mom had given me some milk chocolate, and I had to be rushed to the hospital with hives and breathing problems, where I was diagnosed with both chocolate and milk allergies. Ever since then, I have never been allowed to eat anything containing chocolate or cow's milk. Over the summer, one of my college friends from out of state invited me to come stay with her for a few weeks. While I was in her state, I decided to use the opportunity to visit my godmother aunt, who I haven't been able to see since I was a young child. My aunt was thrilled to see me, and we spent a whole day hiking and just catching up. When we stopped for lunch, my aunt pulled out some granola bars, but they had chocolate in them, so I couldn't eat them. I told her that I was allergic to chocolate, and she was stunned. My aunt told me that I have never been allergic to chocolate and that my mom was lying to me. She told me the story of how I had gotten ill from daycare, and my mom had tried to sue the daycare owner for some stupid reason that no one was sure of. My mom was pissed off because she thought the daycare owner was flirting with my dad, and she wanted to get the daycare shut down. My mom then invented the story about me and the chocolate at the Halloween party. She made sure not to tell the daycare about the fake allergy, and then waited for the daycare to feed me food with chocolate in it so that she could sue. When that didn't work, my mom then invented a story about me being allergic to milk. When Aunt tried to call her out on it, my mom stopped speaking to her, and that silence has continued until the present. Needless to say, I was stunned. I wanted so badly to believe that my mom was telling the truth, and that my aunt was lying. I waited until we got back to my aunt's house, and I took a bite of one of the granola bars. And I was not allergic at all. I was very upset and decided to call my dad. Our conversation was so crazy and out of nowhere that I don't know what else to do but type it out. The conversation went like this. Me, Dad, were you aware that I am not actually allergic to chocolate and milk like you and Mom have told me? Dad, don't be ridiculous. You've never been able to eat chocolate without a reaction. Why would we make that up? Me, I'm not trying to accuse you of making it up. I was just asking if you were aware that I do not have the allergy. I just ate some chocolate and I didn't have any reaction to it. Did I ever get any allergy tests done? Dad, I will have to ask your mother. I am upset that you are trying to call us liars over this. Me, when did I say anyone was lying? What are you talking about? My mom then jumped into the conversation. Speakerphone. Mom, honey, don't you remember that you had hives at your 10th birthday party? Your friend had given you a Tootsie Pop and you were allergic to the chocolate. Me, Mom, I never had a 10th birthday party and I don't know what you're talking about. I was just curious if I ever had a real allergy test done for chocolate because I was just able to eat some without a reaction. I'm just trying to figure out if I can eat chocolate or not now. Mom, I don't know why you need to know if you had a test or not. You can't eat chocolate because we say you can't eat chocolate. You're being a little liar right now. How dare you say we never gave you a birthday party that year? You've always been ungrateful and now you can't even remember the party we gave you. Me, Mom, I know I never had a 10th birthday party because I was at summer camp. Why are you trying to make me believe that I did? My mom then started screaming at me and I just hung up the phone because it was so loud and I couldn't hear any individual words. I silenced my phone and watched as she proceeded to call me 40 times in a row. The entire time my aunt was watching in horror. My aunt then gave me a hug and told me that this is why she doesn't have a relationship with my mother. My mom has always done this, lied to people and then tried to convince them it was the truth. I am very upset about this entire situation. The conversation was simply one of the craziest things I've seen, and I don't know who these people are anymore. It creeped me out, and I don't think I ever want to talk to them again, or else they will try to turn on me. Am I right in wanting to cut these people out of my life? Mom and Dad always told me I was allergic to chocolate. I went to visit a estranged aunt in a different state, and Aunt revealed my mom made it up to try to sue a daycare. I ate the food I was supposedly allergic to and was fine. I called my parents and they tried to say I was calling them liars and then tried to make up a birthday party. It was crazy, and I think they're crazy, and I just need to know if it's okay to cut them out of my life. Relevant comment? Flowers. For you. I'm just amazed you haven't figured it out sooner. I am allergic to various nuts, and is say about once a year I accidentally eat one. But when I was younger, my parents kept me away from eating all nuts to be safe. OP. They had chocolate and milk banned from the house, and always told my teachers and such about my allergies at the beginning of each school year. I also had to keep an EpiPen in my car, starting after I got my license, just in case something bad happened. I didn't have any reason to doubt them until a few months ago when it all came crashing down. OP adds about her parents. My mom and dad are two peas in a pod, and they are best friends. If she's a narcissist, then I'm 100% positive he is one too. I can't afford an allergy test, but at least I know I'm not going to die from chocolate anymore. I don't think I'll be able to pretend that I forgot about the party because it was so hurtful that she tried to lie to me about it. I don't ever want to speak to her again. She doesn't even remember my birthdays, and she's my mom. I'll check out the subreddit. Thanks. Update. Reddit, November 17th, 2015. It's been a while, but I felt the need to update because my mom purchased a one-way ticket to Crazy Town after I made my first post. To summarize what I have found out since my last post, I am not allergic to chocolate. Chocolate is amazing, and I am now addicted to the chocolate waterfall at Golden Corral. I am not allergic to milk. I am mildly lactose intolerant, but I was always told it was an allergy to a protein in the milk. I can drink Lactaid with no issues. I had an allergy test done, and it confirmed that I am not allergic to anything except for pollen and some animal dander. My mother is a psycho. After I made my original post, I decided that I was going to cut contact with my parents except through email. My mom called me over 1,000 times the first week, and I eventually had to get a new phone and simply stopped answering the old phone and let the battery in it die. To put this in perspective, she used to call me 2-3 times a week, and this sudden increase was pure insanity. Since my mom knew where my dorm room was located on campus, I requested to be moved into one of the more private dorm buildings because I was concerned for my privacy. I didn't tell anyone except my college friends about the move, and I had thought that everything would be fine. Everything was fine for a few weeks, until I got a call from one of the adjunct professors to help tutor one of the new students. My school has a master tutor list, and any student can call the tutors and arrange for help for free. Yes, tutors are paid by the school. I told the adjunct that I would meet the student in the library in a few, and grabbed my books and walked over to the library. Lo and behold, the new student was my mom. My mother decided that she would enroll in classes as a student in order to contact me. When I saw her, I froze and immediately tried to leave the library, but she followed me outside and wouldn't leave me alone. I eventually managed to duck into one of the fraternity apartments and was able to lose her, but she has been basically stalking me on campus ever since. I tried to report her to the school, but the campus police told me that since she never made any threats, that there's nothing I can do. I tried reporting her to the normal police as well, but was told the same thing. My mom has not left me any voicemails or texts or anything at all that I can use to prove what she's doing. My RA has ensured that my mom is banned from my dorm building. Only upperclassmen are allowed, and my mom is technically a freshman. But beyond that, I am running out of options. My mom posted on Facebook that she is signing up for the same classes as I need to complete my major next semester. She posted her schedule, and we are in one of the same classes. And I don't know what else I can do to stop the crazy. She claims that she didn't do anything to hurt me, and that I'm just lying about the chocolate and milk allergies. My aunt had to go out of the country for work, and I feel so alone with dealing with all of this. My dad has basically ditched and moved out of my mom's house, and I haven't been able to get in contact with him either. Any ideas for how to stop the crazy? Till Dadar. My mom lied to me for years and told me I had several food allergies. I caught her in the lie and cut off contact. She is now enrolled in the same classes I need to complete my degree, and I don't know what I can do to stop her from stalking me. Relevant comment. OP replying to a downvoting comment saying to be a mean girl and take charge. OP. I don't think she's physically or financially dangerous. The only way she can hurt me is mentally and emotionally. I've been able to play it off to my friends so far because she is living and breathing the stereotype of the crazy Asian mother. If I can get this meeting arranged, I'm going in drinking a carton of chocolate milk. I'm not worried about her because she's always been this crazy. This is just the first time that her anger has been directed at me. How did the mom find OOP's schedule? She found out from the degree catalog they publish each year, the one that lists all the classes you need to graduate. She signed up for one of the 200-level classes I had left, and it doesn't need any prereqs at all. She's actually really smart, and she somehow managed to test out of a lot of the core classes. She'll be taking Calc 2 next semester. When told to contact the department head or professor and have her mom removed, I'm typing up an email to the department chair now, and I'm waiting for a call back from the student affairs office. I've still got the phone, but the police wouldn't even look at it when I tried to tell them about her stalking me. It's an iPhone, so it saves all the records of when she tried to call me. Raised by Narcissists, November 25, 2015. Hi there. It's my first time posting here because I was hesitant to give my mom the narcissist label. That being said, I don't really have a better term to describe her behavior, and a ton of people pointed me to this subreddit after I posted on our relationships about my mom. To summarize, my mom and dad lied to me and told me I had allergies, chocolate and milk. I believed them for years until I met my estranged aunt, and she spilled the beans and revealed the web of lies created by my mother. I decided to go no contact with my parents, and my mom snapped and enrolled at my university and was basically stalking me and enrolling in the same classes I need for next semester. I contacted the student affairs department, and they arranged a meeting between myself and my mom regarding the stalking. At the meeting, the administrator heard both sides of our stories and pretty much caught my mom in another lie. My mom had her best poker face on and tried to claim that she hadn't contacted me in months. She denied that she had called me repeatedly, denied that she ever tried to get tutoring from me, denied everything she did. She tried to act like she was the victim and that I was just a mean and disrespectful daughter who hated her mom. And that's when I produced my iPhone and showed the administrator the call log from when my mom called me over 1,000 times in a row. This is not an exaggeration. The call log hit quadruple digits. My mom then tried to deny that the number was her cell number, but the administrator looked it up in the student database and it proved she was lying. My mom tried to backtrack, but the damage was done. The administrator made us both sign contracts that said that we each must not contact each other for the remainder of the school year. Otherwise, we would be suspended from classes. My mom was forced to change her schedule so that she would not be in the same classes as I was in. The administrator made it clear that if she tried to circumvent the contract, even if by accident, that she could have her student ID banned from entering the student center or other buildings if I was inside. They are controlled by RFID chips and we have to swipe them to enter certain buildings. After the meeting ended, I was so happy and I felt free for the first time in weeks. A few nights later, my dad called me and left a voicemail informing me that my mom tried to commit suicide with sleeping pills and that she was going to the hospital. I thought it was fake at first, so I called the hospital and they put me through to my dad, who was in the waiting room. My dad laid into me pretty hard and called me names and stuff about the whole situation, and then told me that if I didn't want my mom to die, I shouldn't have made her life miserable. So that's my Thanksgiving vacation, and I don't really know what to think or do right now. I'm going to go bake a pumpkin pie and try to forget about it all, but food tastes like ash in my mouth.